Hello, welcome back to another episode of ABA Mom. I am your host, Allie, a board-certified behavior analyst and a mom to 5 kiddos. Today we're going to talk about something that I don't think gets touched on enough, and that is when adults have tantrums. And we're going to dive into something I've been listening to on my Audible. It's called the Let Them Theory. I am obsessed with this book. I think it's great. It ties right into ABA and other branches of psychology, and it's really simple to use. It's really easy to break down. And one thing that I love about it is that it's completely relatable to everybody, because behavior doesn't just happen in children, it happens in adults. Tantrums happen in adults. From a behavior analytical lens, a tantrum is just a behavior that is maintained by reinforcement. Anything that is reinforcing a behavior is going to increase. So reinforcement always increases the behavior, whether that's negative reinforcement or positive reinforcement. It's always going to increase a behavior. And that is true for kids and it's true for adults. It is true for everyone. So when adults raise their voice, they shut down, they give you the silent treatment or spiral emotionally. That is behavior serving a purpose. So usually that's one of 4 things. So that's escape. So getting out of something you don't want to do. Also avoidance. So avoiding something you don't want to do. Attention, to be seen, validated, responded to. So sometimes you might see somebody giving you the silent treatment, but what they're really seeking is for you to give them that attention, to ask them if everything's okay. And then I think sometimes when adults give the silent treatment, you start to question yourself. Like, what did I do wrong? How can I do things differently? What's going on here? Tangible. So getting something that they want. So tangible, for example, with a child, sometimes even adults, maybe they really want an iPad or they really want something at the store and they didn't get the thing that they wanted. That could be a reason for a behavior such as a tantrum, because they didn't get the access to the thing that they wanted. So access, tangible, it could be an activity that they want. It could be something permanent that they want. Automatic. Emotional discharge feels relieving. It could be sensory, right? It could be sensory seeking. So kind of getting some of those emotions out could feel relieving. There could be a sensory component to that as well. Oh, now here's a mistake that we often make. We treat adult tantrums differently than child tantrums. So we see an adult having a tantrum and we treat it differently. Why? Because they're adults, right? We expect adults to be emotionally regulated, but I think oftentimes as adults, and even, myself, is emotional regulation is hard. Emotional maturity doesn't happen for everyone, especially if you had parents that didn't give you that blueprint or weren't emotionally regulated themselves. How are you going to learn if you weren't given that example? So as an adult, it becomes kind of our responsibility to be able to regulate some of those emotions and learn emotional maturity. And I know in ABA, emotions is often something that we try to steer clear away from because that's more of a mentalistic term. But what happens inside us, all of those feelings, is still a part of us, and being able to release those emotions and the way that we feel are absolutely valid. And it's something that we could say is a private event. So it's something that's going on inside of us that it's not necessarily observable. It's not necessarily something that other people can see, but it's something that's going on in us. So for example, a headache can be a private event. We know we have a headache. We could say, I have a headache. My head hurts. Maybe you lay your head down. So you're showing outwardly some signs of having a headache, but you are the only one that can feel and knows that you have a headache. Same thing with some of those emotions. So you might start to feel some of those things inside you. So you might start to feel tensed up when you feel angry or stressed, like your body might get tense, your chest might get tighter. Those are all physical symptoms that you may feel when you start to have some of those emotions. So we engage, we defend, we try to fix it, we absorb it when we see adults having tantrums. And those could even be the people closest to us. This could be mom, dad, our spouse, adult children. So whoever it may be in your life, we definitely have a different way to respond. And sometimes we do have those questions like, what do I do? Or how did I do this differently? Or why are they upset with me? Sometimes we do take it very personally. So the let them theory, which is a beautifully written, and they have a podcast as well, and it's amazing. So if somebody wants to be upset, misinterpret you, avoid responsibility, stay dysregulated, let them. Right? That sounds simple. Easily be upset, misinterpret you, avoid responsibility, stay dysregulated. You can absolutely let them. It is not your responsibility to emotionally regulate another adult. And it's not in a dismissive way, it's in a regulated way. When someone escalates and we jump in emotionally, we can be part of the contingency of maintaining that behavior. So if we see somebody giving us a silent treatment, when we go and say, what's wrong? Are you mad at me? Which is something I was very guilty of for a long time, is saying, are you mad at me? Like, what's wrong? And feeding into that and some of that silent treatment, for example, it's just reinforcing that behavior. Like you're just reinforcing that behavior. You're providing that reinforcement. And whether that person is conscious of that or subconsciously, like that's exactly what's happening is, the idea of like, you did something to me, I am now going to ignore you, but then you seeking that validation and asking what is wrong, you're now reinforcing some of that behavior. So, and when somebody escalates, we do tend to jump in emotionally. We try to fix the problem. So if yelling leads to engagement, yelling probably will increase. If spiraling leads to reassurance, spiraling increases. So we can reinforce negative behaviors that we don't want to see more of. We're going to see more of because we are reinforcing it. If blame leads to debate, blame can increase. Sometimes extinction isn't dramatic. Extinction is just a detachment, right? Detaching ourselves from that situation. You could even say giving some kind of acknowledgement, right? But not that reaction that they're expecting. So you could say things like, okay, I can hear you. We can talk when we're both calm. That's an example. You say, maybe we can talk about this later. Let them feel what they're feeling. You don't have to co-sign it. So whatever they're feeling, let them feel it. So, and another thing I want to talk to you that I thought was so beautiful that was brought up in this book was, what is an emotion? So an emotion, like we know, like we could feel happy, we could feel sad, we can feel angry. So we know what emotions feel like. We kind of know what it feels like in our body, like when we're happy, when we're excited, like we start to smile more. Maybe we jump up and down, right? So we know kind of our response for emotion, but what is an emotion? And an emotion is a 6-second chemical burst in our body. 6 seconds. Our body is changing. We can feel the physical changes in our body within 6 seconds. Now let's talk about it. And talk about you. When you feel rage, embarrassment, fear, jealousy, there's a little chemical surge in your brain and in your body. Primarily adrenaline, cortisol, that lasts about 6 seconds. 6. That's the initial emotional spike. It's biological, not moral, not spiritual, not personality. It is a chemical response in your body. So something may happen in your environment. So somebody's giving you the silent treatment. Your body has a chemical response. Somebody's yelling at you. Your body has a chemical response. You didn't get that thing that you really wanted at the store. They were out of whatever. What do adults like? Legos. Some adults like Legos, right? You didn't get the Legos that you wanted. Okay. Or your computer wasn't working. Chemical response in your body, which then may affect your behavior, the way that you respond to that. The way you outwardly respond is the behavior side of that. What's observable? So I'm angry. Maybe I clench my fist, bite my teeth, right? Like, ugh, that's a behavior. So I'm responding to this chemical burst that is inside my body. So you may even say things like, why do you always do this? That's not fair. Statements like that. also a behavior, also a response to that chemical burst in your body. So something happened, antecedent, behavior, consequence. Okay, so that behavior part, you can make a choice during that time. So it's learning to respond. So learning to respond to the behavior. So if you're feeling angry, you start to feel it, you feel that chemical burst, you're like, oh, I can't believe that person did that to me. They cut me off when I was driving. It's the way that you respond, right? So you know that this will pass. Okay, so it starts within 6 seconds. Wave, ride out the wave. So the way you responded, you can absolutely feel. And a matter of fact, you should feel all the feelings that you feel in that moment. But think about the way you respond. Take a minute to pause, which is easier said than done. A lot of people take deep breaths. Mindfulness, I'm huge on mindfulness activities. It's something I try to work on myself to help regulate my body. Think about the present, where I am, what it is that I am doing, focusing on another activity. Take a breath. It's how easy one breath is. As soon as we start to feel all of that surge of emotion and breathe, it could change everything, the way that we respond. And kids don't always have that emotional regulation yet, and learning some of those skills, the best way to teach those skills to your children is to model them. Modeling, there's a lot of literature on modeling and how important that is, but how are they going to learn when they have a dysregulated adult in their life? So yes, we can't control the emotions of others. We control the way that we respond when others act that way, and we can respond what happens to us in our body when we start to have that surge of emotions. Yeah, but the chemical wave itself, 6 seconds. Ride it out. So here's your ABA tools. So what you could do is pause, breathe. You can count down to 6 slowly. There's lots of different breathing techniques. You could do square breathing. That's a good one. Or square or box breathing. One I like to use a lot with kids is the blowing the candle out. So holding up a finger, blowing to blow the candle out. Sometimes in that moment, taking a deep breath is difficult because we're in such a high stress response. So it's learning to take some deep breaths. You could even say out loud, this is a chemical wave, or I don't need to respond to this. And if somebody else gives you this chemical response, you could say, I don't have to respond to this, or let them, the whole book, right? Just let them, right? And then the other part of the let them, and like I said, I'm halfway through the book, I'm loving it, would be let me, right? So let them be, and then let me. What can you do? Let me, right? You can respond in that moment. You could take a deep breath. You can pause. Okay, so let me take care of myself too. So let's be real. We are not just managing other adults. Sometimes it's adult tantrums. And sometimes we're the adults that tantrum. So we snap, we shut down, we escalate, we have all these feelings. And here's the reframe. That's behavior too. Instead of shame, ask, what's the function, right? So sometimes even when I feel something or it's a big emotion, I have to ask myself, what is the function of my behavior in this moment? And, I've definitely had plenty of practice doing that. And even sometimes when I recognize it, getting through it is hard. It doesn't mean that it's not real. It doesn't mean I don't feel these chemical bursts, but what is the function of this behavior? And a lot of times I look at whatever happened before the antecedent. What happened in my environment that now I'm responding this way? Was I escaping something? Right? I do have a tendency to do a lot of avoidance behavior. Right? And we all do. We're all guilty of that too. Are you seeking some kind of attention or validation from somebody? So that's something to recognize too. Like, what was I doing? Feeling overstimulated, right? Was it kind of just like a release because your environment, like you're so overstimulated? Like there's times where I'm so busy and my life gets chaotic and I don't have the time, which I need to take the time for breaks for myself. Parents, that's so important to take breaks for yourself. That you just like scream sometimes, right? Like sometimes you scream or you walk away or you just need time, right? We all need breaks. We teach our kids to take breaks. We need to take breaks. We need to take breaks too. It's super important for us as an adults to take breaks. Okay. So just let it pass. Let it pass. Think it through. You are a logical person. You are a logical human with big emotions, and you can absolutely feel all the emotions that you need to feel. Just pause and think of how to respond. Do we want to respond in an angry text? Which I have totally been guilty of doing with my husband. Actually, I did that a few weeks ago. And you know what I needed to do at that time was I needed to take a pause, and I needed to realize that this wasn't even a big issue. And I needed to take some time. I needed to step back and I needed to breathe before responding. And so before responding to that chemical reaction, that burst that I was feeling of emotions, before I responded, because I wasn't able to at that time give a logical response. And I'm a logical person, and you are a logical person, and you can give a logical response. So here is my regulation formula. So there's a trigger, 6 seconds, choose your behavior. You cannot control somebody else's tantrum, somebody else's behavior. The way that we change behavior is by manipulating the environment. So what can we change? We can change ourselves. We can change the environment. But you can control whether you reinforce somebody else's behavior. So you can't control it. If they have a tantrum, slam cabinets, they get mad, they throw dishes, whatever it is that they're doing. You can't control their behavior, but you can reinforce it. And reinforcing that behavior is a choice, because you can reinforce negative behavior. You can't control your initial emotional surge. That is a chemical response in your body, and everyone has them, and everybody has a surge of emotions. Take a second. You are a logical person. This is just a surge. This emotion, I feel it. And now I have to make a choice on how I'm going to respond. And that, like I said, is easier said than done, but you absolutely can do it. And regulate yourself. And that's power. And it's power for your children too, because if they see you start to regulate, you're modeling the appropriate response. And sometimes our children are the antecedent. Sometimes they say something, or they know what to do, especially sometimes as they get older, right? They know you, and they know you're going to love them no matter what. But you have a choice on how you're going to respond to that behavior every time. And if you mess up one time, that's okay. Try again the next time. Take a second, pause, think of your response. So moms and dads, emotional maturity is not about never feeling. Please don't think that. Please feel all the feelings that you need to feel. It's about responding to how you're reacting. This week, try it. I'm going to work on it myself. When somebody escalates, let them escalate. You can't control it. They're going to escalate. You asking them if they're going to be mad at you 100 times isn't going to fix it. When you escalate, pause. Give yourself at least 6 seconds, if not longer. Behavior is interaction with the environment, and you always get to choose your next move. All right, I will see you next time on ABA Mom. And just remember, you are not in this journey alone. Take care, everyone.